Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kendrick. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm excited. Football is getting closer. Practices are happening. It's interesting watching some of the competitions that are going on. We're seeing the articles about the players who are breaking out, some of the players who have been a bit lackluster. This is all really fun, and I am more excited now than ever to be watching practice footage, to be watching some of these wide receivers burn the corners, to watch corners make great plays on footballs, to watch quarterbacks make great throws. It's all really, really fun. I am one of those people, though, who does keep it all in perspective. I understand it's a lot easier to do these things in practice than in a real game. So I'm gonna temper my expectations and temper everything until real game action happens. But one thing I did think that was very interesting, relating to college football. So Justin Fields, who is the star quarterback of Ohio State, he started a petition in which he was demanding that the Big Ten season be reinstated, because the Big Ten said that they are going to cancel their fall season and they are going to hope for spring. Of course, Justin Fields is seen as, if he's not the number one, he's the number two prospect in the entire NFL draft, because I think most people, they just like Trevor Lawrence. He's bigger, has more experience, and Trevor Lawrence, obviously, as a freshman, was sensational and won the national championship. Justin Fields, though, in his own right, is great thrower, great runner, and he is seen as most likely, he's probably going to go number two overall. It'll just depend on, who is actually there. I think the only way that he would really fall is if the team that had the number two overall pick had their guy. Then they'd probably go ahead and skip him. But nonetheless, he started a petition demanding for the season to be restarted, and last time I checked the petition, it had about 270,000 signatures. I am sure this thing is probably going to get north of 300,000. I'm sure this thing is probably going to it could get north of 400,000 signatures. Now, is it going to do anything? I don't think so. But part of, so here is a little bit of their caption to the petition, right? They say that we, the football players of the Big Ten, together with the fans and supporters of college football, request that the Big Ten Conference immediately reinstate the 2020 football season. Allow Big Ten players, teams, to make their own choice as to whether they wish to play or opt out this fall season. Allow Big Ten players and teams who choose to opt out to play a fall season to do so without penalty or repercussion. And that was kind of the argument I was making, and last time I talked about this, was my whole thing is, look, if the players want to play, if the coaches, if they want to if they feel like they can follow the protocols, they can follow all the safety measures, and they are willing to deal with the risk, let them play. That's my whole thing. I understand there's a whole liability thing. These guys don't get paid, and so they could sue, and of course nobody likes to get sued. Whenever a school is in danger of being sued, they do everything they possibly can to make it so it doesn't happen, because more often than not, these schools do lose those battles, and it's a concern that they have. And it's not necessarily the catching of COVID, it's none of that. It has to do everything with the after effects of COVID, what it's been doing to people's hearts, what it's been doing to people's organs in general, right? COVID is not just making people's lungs fill with fluid. It's not just making it so that people are losing their appetite or losing their sense of taste and losing their sense of smell. It's not just doing that to people. It is, even those who do recover from it. There are reports that it's affecting people's brain chemistry, that it is affecting people's hearts, it's affecting livers, it is affecting how their organs actually function. And that is the thing that college football is the most concerned with. It is those long-term after effects that some people are dealing with that they're the most concerned for. So again, college football, it's just a really, really iffy subject, and I understand that there is not one clear-cut answer, but my standpoint is still, let the players play. If they want to play, let them play. And I understand sometimes you gotta stop people because they're their own worst enemies. Sometimes you need to save someone from themselves. I don't believe this is one of those situations. But nonetheless, we got a lot to get into today. Gerald McCoy of the Cowboys, he is out for the season with an injury. Alex Smith, he has been cleared for all football activity, and everyone is very, very happy for him. I am terrified for him, and he had some statements come out. I want to talk about that. Jamal Adams, he responded to Greg Williams about he's going to get bored in Seattle. I do want to talk about that. And then CBS. CBS. They made another list. This time, it was about the top quarterback competitions to watch as the season draws near, and they claim that there are 7. They left 2 battles on this list completely off, and I don't understand why, because they put 3 battles on this list that I don't think make any sense. So me and CBS, we clearly just don't agree. I don't know who does all their lists. I don't know if they have different writers who do them, but whoever's doing their lists, I just don't really agree. And so I'm going to discuss that as well. But anyways, so this part of the NFL offseason is kind of what I like to refer to as injury season. Basically, this is that time of the year where you could maybe say guys who are more susceptible to soft tissue injuries, guys who maybe have weaker knees, maybe even the guys who have overexerted themselves throughout the offseason, haven't really spent it relaxing, but have just been working. And there are the studies out there, right, about people who do a continuous motion, those people who are only one sport athletes, there's a reason they get worn down quicker than guys who were multiple sport athletes. And it's because they're doing the same motion over and over, year after year, thousands of times a year, and that muscle just gets worn down. Which is why, scientists have said they prefer kids as they're growing up, don't be a one sport athlete. Be a multiple sport athlete. It is just better for your joints. But anyways, enough of that soliloquy. And so you see multiple different kinds of injuries. Most of them involve ACLs. It's the ACL, it's the MCL, it's the Achilles, it's different things like that. I think the worst injury I remember hearing about and kind of watching about was Teddy Bridgewater's a couple seasons ago when he dislocated his knee and his leg literally bent in the other direction, and it was horrifying to teammates. And obviously it really derailed Teddy Bridgewater's career, but he has since then come back. And now obviously has a big deal with the Panthers, even though I don't think he's going to do anything necessarily with the Panthers. Like, I don't think he's going to lead them to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're even going to really be a contender in the NFC. I've watched Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's solid, but I think he's a limited starter. I think he's a great backup. So I'm not sure exactly how that's all going to pan out, but I am happy that Teddy Bridgewater was able to come back. But Gerald McCoy, who was one of the big ticket free agents of the Cowboys, he signed a 3-year, $18 million deal. So, I mean, they got him at what is that, about $6 million a year, which you would assume for a guy of Gerald McCoy's stature and his history in the league, it was a bargain. He is officially out. It was originally reported as he had a torn ACL. I think it was then reported that it was just a ruptured quad. Nonetheless, he's going to be out for the year. And I think that this is a big blow to the Cowboys. The Cowboys' weak point of their team this coming into this season is their defense. I remember last season they were actually talking about one of the bright points of their team was the defense. The offense everyone figured was going to be really, really good. But the defense with Jalen Smith, with Leighton Vander Esch, DeMarcus Lawrence, you still got Byron Jones, you still got all these pieces. They figured that this defense was going to be good. And I think the Cowboys defense was still good. If I remember off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure they were top 10. Let me look. I think I wrote it. Pro Football Reference had them at 11th. Okay, so right outside of the top 10. But nonetheless, a top 11 defense, like, you can win with that. You can go to the Super Bowl with a top 11 defense. Now, the point is still very true. Defense does win championships. You need a defense to be able to make a stop. You look at that Philadelphia, New England Super Bowl, right? Both offenses couldn't be stopped. But what was the big play? Brandon Graham ended up stripping Tom Brady of the football, and of course the rest is history. So defense is still very, very important, especially when it comes to the Super Bowl, right? Find me a defense that was god awful. I mean, like last in yards, last in points, last in everything. Find me that defense that went to the Super Bowl. It just doesn't happen. Because while the other team might be stopping your offense, if your defense can't stop anybody, then it is moot. It doesn't mean anything. But he is going to be out for the year. And a big point of emphasis on this Cowboys team was going to be around their pass rush. Because it basically looked like it was going to be DeMarcus Lawrence and a bunch of guys. And DeMarcus Lawrence was getting double teamed, and though Lawrence was still very good, but if you look at by his Pro Football Focus grade, everything, he was still a very good player. The problem is that he just wasn't getting the sacks. They could run plays away from him because the rest of the defensive line wasn't really respected. And so while Lawrence was still being a good player and was still able to, get his pressures, was still able to break double teams and get past his blockers, it was just he wasn't able to register those big, gaudy numbers that people like to look at, like the sacks. And you're paying DeMarcus Lawrence $20 million a year. And when you pay a guy that kind of money, you want to see it on the stat sheet. You want to see the sacks. Right? There's a lot of fans out there who really just like to see the numbers. I'm a guy where I will respect a player. If they're good, they're good. If they can just continuously get pressure on the quarterback, that is fantastic. If they can continuously split double teams, that's fantastic. But there's other people out there that like to see counting numbers. They don't like those intangible stats. They don't want to see that. They want to see you actually hit that quarterback, bring him down for a loss of 8 with a sack, and then you do a dance. Especially if you look at Gerald McCoy, though he is older, if you look at his grade as an interior defender from 2010 to 2019, he ranks 15th in his actual just overall grade. He ranks 5th as a pass rusher. If there's one thing Gerald McCoy has been great at as a D-tackle, it is rushing the passer. Now people, they tend to give the moniker of pass rushing defensive tackles to guys like Aaron Donald, rightfully so, right? I'm definitely not gonna say that Gerald McCoy is in Aaron Donald's class. There's Aaron Donald, and then there's everybody else. But it's guys like Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Fletcher Cox, maybe to a lesser extent, you have Kenny Clark with Green Bay, who actually just got a huge extension himself because he's a very good player and in his own right. But Gerald McCoy has been consistently dominant for a decade. He's been a great player. Was just recently with Tampa Bay, I think on a 1-year deal, and now he is over with Dallas, a team that he said that he really, really wanted to play for. Now, the upside for the Cowboys is when you look at their defensive line, they still have DeMarcus Lawrence. They had signed Dontari Poe, who I thought was going to be a great punch with Gerald McCoy, but at this point now, I guess it's going to be Poe's show. They ended up getting back Aldon Smith, who has been struggling with addiction issues, and I do not want to make a joke about that or anything. He's been struggling with addiction issues. Drugs completely took over his life, and I'm sure that this stuff, something he is always going to regret, because this guy, once upon a time, was one of the greatest he had one of the greatest rookie seasons as a defensive player. He was dominant for the 49ers. He looked so special, right? People, they talked about how great Nick Bosa was. Aldon Smith was Nick Bosa before Nick Bosa. Aldon Smith came into the league wreaking havoc, and then drugs just completely derailed him. But they ended up getting him back. They hope that he can give you some kind of some form, maybe even 70% of what he used to be. That's what they're hoping for. Randy Gregory, they should be getting him back. I think he's still waiting for reinstatement, but they should be getting him back. And I think, who was their other D tackle, actually? I just remembered. They had another D tackle. He was a big dude, too. They had another, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I'll look that up during the break, probably. But I remember they had another D tackle who quit for weed. But I think he's applying for reinstatement as well. But they also made a great free agent signing in Everson Griffin. Everson Griffin, though he is older, people need to realize it wasn't like he was just a free agent because the Vikings didn't want him. In his deal, he had a chance to opt out of his deal. And he took that, because he wanted to try and get more money. He didn't like what the Vikings were paying him, and he wanted to go and get more money somewhere. Now, I don't think he necessarily got more money with the Cowboys, and for whatever reason, I don't entirely know why. I would assume if the Vikings had $6 million, they would have offered it to him. I can't imagine they wouldn't have, though I know the Vikings do need to pay some other people, but Everson Griffin is now with the Cowboys, and he is another player who, even in his older age, is, I think he's 32, but still in great shape. Did take a bit of time off for some mental health reasons. All due respect, do what you gotta do. I am all for men getting whatever professional help it is that they need, because there's a stigma around it that it's weak or that it's just corny, and I just don't agree with that. But having Everson Griffin there to be your bookend pass rushers, or for you to have some kind of a rotation revolving around Griffin, Smith, Gregory, these guys, I think that would both. David Irving. That's the guy I'm thinking of. Their other D tackle. David Irving, who was a monster for them. When he was on, David Irving was unblockable. He ended up quitting for weed purposes. Now, obviously, the NFL has legalized it. He's applying for reinstatement. So you could kind of say, when it comes to the Cowboys defense, they have a solid defensive line. Losing Gerald McCoy is huge, and Dontari Poe I do not believe is as good as Gerald McCoy. Maybe at this stage of his career he is, but I don't know. I don't know the Pro Football Focus grades off the top of my head or anything. But while you could say their defensive line is solid with some rotational pieces there, their linebacking core, you're hoping that Van Der Esch can come back from his neck injury, and Van Der Esch says he's fine. You're hoping that Jalen Smith comes back, and that they're able to correct some of their issues that they had last year, which was basically that teams were using their aggressiveness against them. Their younger linebackers, they're going full steam ahead. Teams were using that to their advantage to take advantage of them. And so hopefully, they would fix that. But that Cowboys secondary is not good. I think their best defensive back at this point is Clinton Dix. They lost Byron Jones. Their other cornerbacks are up and down. Their other safety, I think it's Xavier Woods. Again, it's kind of an up and down situation. Their secondary is bad. And Gerald McCoy was supposed to be a big piece on that defense to help with that pass rush, because pass rush can really help a secondary be better, right? The less time a quarterback has to throw, the more likely the quarterback is to rush a throw or to make a dump off pass somewhere, to not make the best throw, and that helps your secondary. Them losing him could really impact them. I almost feel like the Cowboys on offense should go back to rookie season Dak Prescott. Go back to 2016. And play that style of offense if you can. Meaning, run the football down the team's throat, control the clock, because you remember that season, the only good player they had on that defense, if anything, was Sean Lee. And that was the only season Sean Lee was able to stay healthy. DeMarcus Lawrence, he wasn't exactly DeMarcus Lawrence yet. Byron Jones, I think they were still playing him at safety and not cornerback, so they weren't even using him exactly properly either. But they managed to have a pretty good defense because their offense was like number one by a long shot in time of possession. I almost feel like they need to go back to that, because are you seriously going to continue to put that defense out there? Really? You want that secondary is going to get abused by people. And again, their defensive line is just kind of good on paper. I think we know what we're going to get from DeMarcus Lawrence, assuming he stays healthy. We know what we're going to get from Everson Griffin, assuming that he's at least the same player he's been the last 2 years. All the other guys, I think we know what we're going to get from Dontari Poe. We're going to get a really good run stuffer, can have his elite moments and can have his elite games, but I think, he's a good D tackle, not a great D tackle. And then for like Aldon Smith, we don't know what the hell we're going to get from Aldon Smith. When it comes to Randy Gregory, there's a lot of talent there. A lot of talent. Dude has missed so much football. He has missed so much time for the same kind of reasons as Aldon Smith. I just don't know. I think the injury to Gerald McCoy was bad, and I watched the video of the injury. It was nothing graphic, nothing bad or anything like that. It was just simply, you take a wrong step, and his quad ruptured. Sometimes, as amazing as the human body is, as complex as the human body is, there are some flaws in it, and it seems like all the flaws have to do with your knees down. From the knee down, we are like ticking time bombs to go off. And especially when you're, 300 pounds and a D tackle, and you are not, Gerald McCoy's still a young man, but in football years, he's older, and we've had, I guess, that much tread on the tires, one wrong move, and you just kind of go off. I think first off, I hope Gerald McCoy is okay in the long run. I hope he can come back and play. I feel like he still has some good football left in him, and I would hate it if, he gets to finally play for a team he's wanted to play for so long in the Cowboys, and then all of a sudden he doesn't even get a chance to get on the field. I would hate for that. And, but for the Cowboys especially, I really do think this is a big blow. When they got Gerald McCoy, I think that shocked a lot of people. I think there were a lot of people that didn't expect it. Even Cowboys fans did not expect them to be able to land Gerald McCoy. I think a lot of people thought he would cost a lot more because people still view Gerald McCoy as a good player. And then when I just take a look at the rest of their defense, I know what I'm going to get from only a few players. I know what I'm going to get from D-Law. I know what I'm going to get from Poe. I know what I'm going to get from Jalen Smith. And I know what I'm going to get from HaHa Clinton Dix. Everybody else is kind of a wild card. I don't quite know what Van Der Esch is going to look like when he comes back. He didn't look that great last year as compared to his rookie year, so I'm interested to see how that all pans out. I'm not sure what I'm going to get from Aldon Smith and Randy Gregory, assuming they are both able to fully come back. Everson Griffin, is his age finally going to catch up to him, or can he be like the guy he's been the last few seasons and essentially for his whole career? Because for his whole career, he's been a great pass rusher. I think there's just a lot of questions. There are. I think the Cowboys offense is going to be the thing that needs to carry this team again. And last year, they were number 1 overall. It garnered them 8-8. Let's see what Mike McCarthy does to fix this team and to fix some of the holes in it, to coach them a bit better, maybe in late game situations, make it so they don't get down 20, 31-3, something like that. Especially, 20 down to the Jets? Ew. That's terrible. That is disgusting. Now, what's really, really strange about this whole thing is that Gerald McCoy has actually been cut by the Cowboys. I think they're paying him a total of $3 million. They said he can keep his signing bonus, but the rest of the money is no longer guaranteed to him or anything like that because he had an injury clause in his contract that I'm assuming the Cowboys put in it to where in the event that he hurt his quad, they could release him and not pay him anything. And that is exactly what ended up happening. So I'm assuming Gerald McCoy had some kind of an injury that he just didn't want to get surgery for. He was hoping maybe he could put it off, that it would heal by itself, but he knew there was a possibility it could get injured. He divulged this to the Cowboys, so the Cowboys went ahead and protected themselves. It's good business on the Cowboys' part. Very, very unfortunate for Gerald McCoy, because as I stated, I think this was a team that he's wanted to play for. He's in the latter part of his career as a defensive tackle. It's just very, very upsetting. Very, very sad end to what was going to be his 2020 season. But hey, you know what? Doesn't risk COVID, gets to be home with his family, so I guess it has its benefits. But anyways, coming up next, Alex Smith. He has been cleared to resume football activities, and I do not like it. That coming up next.
Listen up, sports bettors. This is Bryce and Ethan here to tell you about our favorite sports book, and that's BetUS. Football, basketball, and baseball are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. We only endorse one sports book, and that's BetUS.com. Why, you ask? BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the biz. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, and you need to know that you're going to get paid.
That's right, Bryce. You need a sports book that offers everything, including live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, entertainment, and all kinds of crazy prop bets and future bets. Don't forget, call today at 1-800-MyBetUS. That's 1-800-MyBetUS, and they will walk you through on getting started. Nobody in the industry gives better bonuses than BetUS. Join now, mention GSMC, and you get up to 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody can beat that. We bet at BetUS, so should you. Join BetUS today. That's BetUS.com or call 1-800-MyBetUS. Mention GSMC to get 150% in bonuses on your first deposit.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked a little bit about Gerald McCoy's injury, knocking him out for the entire season, and how big of a blow it is to the Cowboys. Again, I just don't really like the Cowboys' defense. While it is solid, I think they lost a lot by letting go of guys like Byron Jones. I was not a fan of that. He was their one true shutdown corner. He was great. While he didn't get his hands on a lot of interceptions, he was not that kind of guy. He was a pass deflector, though. He was a guy who could just purely cover you, and they let him go to Miami. While I like parts of their defensive line and their linebacking core, while it's kind of hit and miss when it's on, it is one of the best in the league. Their secondary is just not great. Outside of HaHa Clinton Dix, it is not great. They have young corners who are very inconsistent so far. They do not really have that one standout true corner, and I believe that their offense is going to be asked once again, and kind of like it was in 2016, to carry this defense. Nonetheless, So back in 2016, I did kind of bring it up in the last segment, but Teddy Bridgewater was knocked out. During OTAs and padded practices and everything, he ended up getting knocked out right before the season began, which of course then made the Vikings basically panic, and they ended up trading for Sam Bradford from the Eagles. But when Teddy Bridgewater got knocked out, it was a terrible injury. His knee bent in the wrong direction, and people were trying to figure out if he'd ever even be able to walk again, because it had completely messed up his leg. And I think it took multiple surgeries, but they were able to save his leg. Then the timetable was just, what on earth is going to happen? Right? How long is it going to take for him to get back on the field? And it got to the point where he could finally suit up again. He was finally able to sit on the sideline with the Vikings, and I remember when he stepped out onto the field. It was during, I think, the Vikings, it was either during their final game of the season, or it was during a blowout, but Teddy Bridgewater got to come out onto the field. The crowd just erupted. It was beautiful. It was a really, really beautiful moment. And one of the reasons, though, why it is that people do love it is because not only does everyone love a good comeback story, everybody loves it when it happens to a good guy. The thing with Teddy Bridgewater is he's just such a good guy. He's a good young... he's still young. He's not even 30 yet. I don't know, how old is he? 26, 27? He's a young guy still. And he had so much career, he had all of this promise, and I might even be actually overselling his age. He might even be younger than that. I honestly am not quite sure. But Teddy Bridgewater is still a young guy. He was so nice. Minnesota loved him, and then he got this horrific injury. And he was finally able to step foot on a field again. Another guy, Jalen Smith of the Cowboys, brought him up in the last segment as well. Jalen Smith, when he was drafted by the Cowboys, his draft stock in his NFL future was completely in jeopardy. Because in his last game, I think he played during one of the bowl games, and his knee was destroyed. And he literally couldn't walk. For a year plus, he could not feel his leg. I think it was the lower part of his leg he couldn't feel. I think that he had what was called, I know there's a more medical term for it, but it's kind of referred to as dropped foot. Essentially, his leg didn't work. The nerve was dead. It regenerates at a very, very slow rate. It takes a lot of rehab, and more importantly, it takes a lot of time. And there was this thought of Jalen Smith in college. If he had stayed healthy, this dude was a top 10 pick. Now, he fell into the second round. The Cowboys took a chance on him. Jalen Smith now is one of the best young linebackers in the league. People love that. It's a beautiful comeback story. Everyone loves a good comeback story, especially when it happens to a good guy. And so when it comes to Alex Smith, this man who has never had a misstep off the field, I don't think he's ever said a wrong thing in a press conference or anything like that. He's been class personified. He was basically booted from San Francisco in exchange for Colin Kaepernick, and then he's booted from the Chiefs in exchange for Patrick Mahomes, and then he goes to Washington. In his first season with Washington, everything's looking real good. I think they were 6-3, and they were looking like they could be a playoff team. People were eyeballing Kirk Cousins, going, dude, why couldn't you do this with this team? What is so different about this team now? Why couldn't you do this? And then Alex Smith gets a compound leg fracture, which knocked him out for the rest of the season, knocked him out for all of this last season, and he almost died. He got a severe infection, which almost killed him. He almost lost his leg. It took 17 surgeries, if I have that number correct. It took 17 surgeries in a little bit over a year, or within a year's span, on his leg to properly save it. Okay? And he just now recently was cleared by medical professionals, by doctors, to resume football activities. Meaning, they've done the tests, they've looked at it, they don't see anything there, and they believe that he should be fine to go ahead and resume and get back on the field. I do not like that. I don't like anything of that, and I don't want to be a downer. I really don't. I think if Alex Smith was able to step on the field, and even if it wasn't a loss, even if he threw one ball, if he even just maybe even stepped onto the field and actually got behind the center, I think you could call a timeout, you could take Alex Smith off the field, never play him again the whole season, and he should win NFL Comeback Player of the Year. He shouldn't even have to do anything to win NFL Comeback Player of the Year except just step on a field. But Andrew Siciliano, big NFL guy, he went to Twitter and he said, basically that Alex Smith, in an article on Washington's site, he said that he couldn't look at his kids in the eyes if he didn't try to play. In a quote, he said, "I'm 36 years old. I have 3 little kids. I have the rest of my life in front of me." He went later on to say, "I know that if I can go out there and play quarterback, I can do anything else in my life." Later on, on CBS, speaking of CBS, in an article, he did a little bit of reflecting about being able to practice for the first time. And he said, "To finally lace up the cleats, to throw my jersey on again and put my helmet on and go out there was such a good feeling. The butterflies, the feeling that you get in your gut out there, it's been so long since I've felt that." Look, that's great. And it's awesome. And again, people, they love a good comeback story. It helps that Alex Smith is such a good guy. It helps that he has a beautiful family. It helps that when it comes to, NFL, even your basic NFL fans, the fans who aren't super into the minutia of everything and don't really, they love Alex Smith. I mean, they really do. Nobody has anything bad to say about Alex Smith. He's never had an off-field misstep, nothing. You can criticize his play. You can criticize his play in the playoffs. You can criticize the fact that he's captain check down, that he is consistently not healthy, that he missed so much time with San Francisco, which is why they even had drafted Colin Kaepernick and were willing to move off of Alex Smith, everything. You can criticize him for all of that. But as a person, you can't say anything bad about Alex Smith. But my problem with Alex Smith here, even as you go into the article, literally in the next paragraph, it talks about how Alex Smith, he had a flesh-eating bacteria affecting his leg. That is the thing that required the 16 additional surgeries. You had the original surgery, which was to fix his leg, and then 16 more to save his damn life because of a flesh-eating bacteria. They quoted Alex Smith himself back in February, saying he was, quote, "lucky to be alive." Sometimes we all are on a destination, but just where we land is a bit different. We land in the wrong area, right? We're given all the information, we're given all these things to look into, but the conclusion that we reach is just different. And I feel like that is what has happened to Alex Smith. Here is how I feel like everything should be interpreted. Now, I am not Alex Smith. I am not trying to say that what he's doing is just terrible and my way is the right way. I am not trying to say that. But I feel like common sense dictates he should take into account he has these 3 kids. This bacteria almost killed him. It infected the injury he got while playing football. Only one other person had this injury before, and they didn't play again, in Joe Theismann. You take all that into account. You have kids. You have a wife. You have over 100, you've made damn near $200 million in contracts for the NFL alone. You've got the family, you've got the money, you've got the house. You will have a career after this somewhere in the media if you want it. I don't think there's any network that would turn Alex Smith down. You have all of that, and you, as you say, are, quote, lucky to be alive. The conclusion I feel like you should reach is, I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. And I'm going to retire. Now, I'm going to assume that he's getting support from his wife, and he's getting support from his kids. There was the video of them showering him with champagne or wine, whatever it was. They were showering him, and it was great, right? It's a feel-good story. People want to see Alex Smith back on the field. Some people do. Let me put it that way. Because I have seen there are other people out there that agree with me that Alex Smith should thank his lucky stars that he didn't die, and he should take this as an opportunity to go ahead, step away from the game. Your legacy kinda is what it is. I mean, he's not gonna win anything with Washington. Let's go ahead and make that very clear. He will not win anything with Washington. I don't think his legacy is really gonna change. Alex Smith's legacy is, he was the guy who was picked over Aaron Rodgers. He couldn't really stay healthy in San Francisco and got pushed out. He won a bunch of games with the Chiefs, but couldn't win the games and eventually was pushed out from there. And then he went to Washington, looked good until his horrific injury. I mean, but all the while, he was a great guy. He was a great teammate. No one had anything bad to say about him. And he's one of the most respected people in the league. He helped Colin Kaepernick become what he was in the league, mentored him, had no problem doing so, knowing full well he was going to be gone. He helped Mahomes, knowing full well it was his last year in Kansas City. He goes to Washington, tries to make the best of the situation, actually was looking pretty good, and then his leg broke. I mean, there's nothing really more to add to his legacy. Again, what's he going to add to it? Maybe a Pro Bowl? Maybe a 4,000-yard passing season. I mean, I don't know if there's much. It's not going to make him a Hall of Famer. Coming back from this will not make him a Hall of Famer. I don't think it makes him one of the best quarterbacks of the decade. I don't think it makes him one of the best quarterbacks of the 2000s. I don't think any of that. I think Alex Smith's legacy is kinda what it is. He was good, not great. A great human being, though. A great human being. But I just think he really needs to think about just stepping away from football. And I get it. I talked about it last time. It can be really hard to step away from the sport when you feel like you have more to prove. Teddy Bridgewater, now granted, Teddy Bridgewater, his injury, it wasn't a compound fracture, I don't believe. I know his leg bent the other way. I don't remember if it was a compound fracture or not. But I don't remember there being any reports about a flesh-eating bacteria, nothing about whether or not he was going to die. It was just simply, could he ever walk straight again? And obviously now he's doing it. So he was able to beat that. Which was outstanding, and I'm very happy for Teddy. I'm happy for all these guys who have been able to come back from injuries, whether it be Robert Griffin, or Teddy Bridgewater, or Tom Brady when he got taken out. I'm glad all these guys were able to come back. But the difference with their injuries and Alex Smith's is that Alex Smith almost died from his. That is what I'm going to harp on. Dude, why would you risk it? I don't want to see Alex Smith get carted off the field again. I don't want to watch him have to limp off the field. I really don't. I want Alex Smith to live the rest of his life taken care of, his family taken care of. I want to be able to see him playing with his kids, spending time with his family. I would like to see Alex Smith become an analyst somewhere, right? Whether it be for the NFL Network or wherever. I want to see Alex Smith discuss football and talk about players and talk about college prospects. I want to see Alex Smith do these things. I just want to see him healthy and happy. And I mean, I guess at the end of the day, if sometimes you need to just do what you got to do, right? At the end of the day, sometimes you just have to do what you got to do. And if Alex Smith just needs to go and play football and go back on the field and just see if he can do it again, so be it. So be it, and I hope the best for you, dude. I really do. Because I just don't want it to backfire. That is the last thing I want. And like, I understand it, because when I was younger, And I was doing running start when I was in high school. One time, I went to a different community college for a quarter because there was a girl there, and I had to go to the college because I had to see her, right? I was at a different college, and like, it was great, and it was actually better than the other one, but I had to go to that school because I just had to see her, and I had to talk to her, and I had to tell her about some things and see how I've changed and all this stuff, and it was stupid, and I wish I didn't do it when I look back on it, but it was something I had to do at the time. If this is something that Alex Smith just has to do, I understand. But I have real concern about just if this goes wrong. I do have real concern. Anyways, coming up next, we're going to talk about a little bit of Jamal Adams, some comments that he made on Greg Williams regarding his statement on him being bored in Seattle. And stay tuned, final topic of the day. CBS made another list that I really disagree with. I'm going to break down why I disagree with their list, and I think there are some teams that they should really add to it when it comes to their quarterback competitions to look out for this coming season. That coming later.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked about Alex Smith. Look, again, when it comes to Alex Smith and his injury, I'm happy that the guy is out. I've seen footage of him back out there on the practice field. I've seen videos of him throwing, and you know what? That all looks fine and dandy. But you can't tell me that as soon as, let's just say hypothetically, let's say he gets onto the field, let's say he goes out there and he starts taking snaps under center, live game action in a game that matters, right? You're gonna tell me that as soon as somebody hits him, you're not gonna kind of hold your breath and hope that he's okay? The first time that he kind of takes a shot around his leg, someone bumps into him, something like that, you're gonna tell me you're not gonna immediately kind of flinch and hope for the best that he's okay, and it didn't just that something didn't just happen to his leg, that the break didn't just give out, it's just there's so much concern for me. There should be so much more concern, I feel, for Alex Smith because of the simple fact that he almost died from his injury because of an infection. And of course, infections, they go away. There's things to give for them. I understand that. But the money he's made, his family, he has young kids, he has a whole life ahead of him. He's not even 40 yet. He has so much time left to live. I just don't know if I would risk it. But anyways, so Seattle made a trade with the Jets, which has been heavily debated, and it was because Seattle gave up, 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and Bradley McDougald, for Jamal Adams. And so a lot of people sit back and they're like, wow, the Jets, they clearly won this trade. I'm one of the people who is of the belief I would rather have a known quantity and know what they are rather than go ahead and basically put my faith in my draft picks, because there is always the chance that the draft pick just doesn't really pan out, right? This isn't Madden where you draft a player and just as long as they're basically a starter on your team, their overall keeps going up and they're just going to keep getting better and better and better. And then next thing you know, your 70 overall player is like a 95. It's not like that in Madden. People in real life, they have a bit of a ceiling. There's only so good that they can get. And so you look at Jamal Adams, and he is arguably the best, a top 3 safety in the league. He's a very versatile player. The Jets played him everywhere at linebacker, edge rusher, slot corner, strong safety, free safety. It doesn't matter. He's just a football player, excuse me. Oh, God. Anyways. So Greg Williams, what he ended up doing is he kind of came out and he took a shot, essentially, I would say, at Pete Carroll, and he said he thinks that Jamal Adams was going to get bored in Seattle. Because Greg Williams is known as a heat them up kind of defensive coordinator. He is all about blitzing. He's a very exotic schemer, and that is why Jamal Adams got to play in so many different positions. Whereas someone like Pete Carroll, your position is your position, right? If you're a corner, all you're gonna do is be a corner. If you're a safety, in Pete Carroll's defense, you're either going to be the high safety or you're going to be the in-the-box safety, which is essentially what people think is going to happen with Jamal Adams, that he will be in the box. Everyone has their assigned positions, right? Pete Carroll's defense is what you would consider vanilla, especially compared to Greg Williams. Well, Pete Carroll came out, and Pete Carroll, he basically said that, well, we don't make as many mistakes as him, and I think I talked about this in my last podcast, that is kind of the risk versus reward factor when it comes to playing an exotic defense, is that if one guy makes a mistake, it is going to be a big play. There's so many moving pieces in an exotic defense. There's so much camouflaging of what your actual coverage is. You're hiding things, and it's all to try and catch the quarterback and the offense off guard. But if one guy is just a little bit out of place, doesn't quite understand their assignment, it could be a touchdown. So it was just, some banter back and forth. But Jamal Adams went ahead on 710 ESPN Seattle, and he said about Greg Williams, he said, "He'll definitely miss me. A lot of them miss me over there. I don't think I'll get bored winning. That's how I look at it. I'll be alright." Now, when you read this quote, and I'm sure a lot of Seattle fans, they read this and they thought, oh, this is great. Oh, yes, he just wants to come here and win, and that is what Seattle does. Seattle just wins, right? Since we drafted Russell Wilson, we've only won under 10 games one time, and it was a 9-7 season. We've never been below 500. If you take... let's just do this. Since 2000, you look at the team's win percentages. Seattle is top 10 in the league in terms of win percentage. That is even before Russell Wilson, even in some of the mediocre years that Seattle was having before Russell Wilson, and even before Pete Carroll, they still managed to be in the top 10 in terms of win percentage. The Jets, since 2000, are bottom 15. I think they're like 13 or 12 or something like that. In the bottom like 12 or 13 when it comes to win percentage. So they aren't even in the top half of the league. Now, while being around the 15 spot isn't terrible, it's not the worst thing in the world to be the 13th worst team since 2000, right? It's not the worst thing in the world. But you would rather be in the top 10, and Seattle is. So when Jamal Adams says, he's going to be fine winning, and that he's looking forward to that, and that's all that matters, that's how he looks at this situation, I do put some stock into it, because I do remember, I don't have the quote in front of me, but I do remember Jamal Adams talking about how he hated the fact that the Jets weren't winning. He hated not winning games. That wasn't something he was used to. He wasn't used to just losing. I remember Jalen Ramsey. He said the same thing. I think it was even during his rookie year. Jacksonville was not good his rookie year, while Jalen Ramsey was good. There was all the talk about he and Steve Smith when they were getting into it. But the Jaguars, they weren't winning. And Ramsey kind of, there was a video of him on the sideline, and it looked like he was crying, and he said that he was just so sick of losing. Some players, they're just not built like that. So I go ahead and I will give some credence to what Jamal Adams said. I've never thought of Jamal Adams as a bad guy. I know there's some people out there who were rubbed the wrong way with his quotes about Adam Gase and his time with the Jets, and he was so loud about when he was actually traded, right? He's going on Instagram Live talking about how happy he is, how excited he is, but then the day he's gonna fly into Seattle, he posted saying, like, man, do you guys really have to book me on a 7 a.m. flight or whatever it was to get to Seattle? And some people, again, they were rubbed the wrong way. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm not gonna lie when I say that when players say it's all about winning for them, I would like to believe that, but I have seen some instances where that is just simply not the case. Let's just take Antonio Brown, right? Antonio Brown, he went on, I believe, Undisputed and First Take. He went on a few different shows, and he talked about his situation with Pittsburgh because there was some controversy around him there. I think it was during when he took the video in the Steelers locker room, in which Tomlin kind of called out the Patriots, and then of course the Patriots went ahead and they ran the Steelers off the field. But Antonio Brown, he was going around almost kind of like on an apology tour. And I remember he went on live TV, and I was listening to this, and he said that all he cares about is winning. That's all he wants to do in his career. He just wants to win. And that might be true. It might be true that you just want to win, but are you okay winning as a receiver, right? Are you okay winning, but you're only catching like 5 balls a game? Or are you okay winning, but you're only going to get a total of like 5 balls thrown your way? And it was made very, very clear that was not how Antonio Brown was. Antonio Brown, he wanted to get his 9 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown or 2, and win the game. But if he was just winning the game, he showed everybody that was not enough for him. He's going onto the sideline, he's flipping coolers, he's just throwing a tantrum, and then of course there was a bunch of other stuff that happened once he even parted ways with Pittsburgh, but we do not need to get into all of that. But I am hopeful that Jamal Adams is telling the truth when he says that he's just looking forward to winning. Seattle in the Russell Wilson era has perpetually been winning at least 10 games. So Seattle, if you kind of take in their history, they should, on paper, win a playoff game. You can hope that a guy like a Jamal Adams, a Quentin Dunbar, one of these guys who are big playmakers, very, very good players at their positions, you can hope that with the additions of them, maybe they can make one of those game-altering plays, because I feel like that's what Seattle's defense has been missing over the last 2 years or so. They've been missing that playmaker. Bobby Wagner is great, but when the ball is deep down the field over his head, you need to have a cornerback or a safety that can make a play, and it hasn't seemed like Seattle has really had that, especially since Earl Thomas left. But you hope that can happen, but the end goal should be to re-sign Jamal Adams. At the end of the day, the goal at the end of this season should be re-signing Jamal Adams, re-signing Dunbar. Maybe you look to re-sign Griffin. I don't think he deserves a top-of-the-market cornerback deal, but I think he does deserve a good payday. But given Seattle's record, I don't know if they're gonna, their history, I don't know if they're gonna do it. I'm not sure where all the money on this team is gone. I know there's a large portion of it that's gone to Wilson and Wagner, but other than that, I'm going to assume there's still some money tied into Sherman. I'm going to assume there was some money still tied into Chancellor. I'm going to assume that's where some of the money has gone, because it doesn't seem like they're paying too many of their players that big of contracts, but yet the money just kind of seems to have run out. I do have high hopes for Seattle though this season. I do. And I'm hoping for the best. How I think that this is going to look, I think unless Pete Carroll is all of a sudden going to change his scheme for the first time and I don't even know how long, I'm pretty sure it's probably going to look the same. I'm sure that Jamal Adams is probably going to be the box safety. That's where he's going to spend a lot of his time, so he'll be getting a lot of tackles, make a lot of plays on the running backs. They might blitz him a lot. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do it, but I do hope that Jamal Adams being around a winning culture, being around a guy like a Russell Wilson, a Bobby Wagner, these guys who have a track record of success in the NFL, I'm hoping that it would rub off on him. Maybe it could even increase his own play. Who knows? But ultimately the goal should be to keep him around. But isn't it kind of funny when you have teams that have histories of just being pathetic? and just moribund come out and talk about other coaches or franchises and take shots at them as if they have any right to. I think I gave the stat in my last podcast. The Jets haven't re-signed a first-round pick since Muhammad Wilkerson, who I'm pretty sure they drafted in 2011. They haven't re-signed the first-round pick since then. Jets, before anybody on your staff comes out and talks about anybody else, how about you try and just get a winning season? Alright, your last winning season, I believe, was 2015. Why don't you just try and get a winning season? How about you try and actually keep your players? I'm very interested to see what happens with Marcus May. He was the safety they drafted, I think, in the same draft as Jamal Adams. Marcus May is another very good safety. I'm interested to see what happens with him. He was a third-round pick. Are they going to re-sign him? Not quite sure. Jamal Adams was the better player, but there's some who say you shouldn't overpay for a safety. If you can get a good safety still at a lesser deal, you take it. I guess I kind of understand that, but I would love Jamal Adams to be on my team. I would have loved to have drafted Leonard Williams. I'm interested to see what happens with Quinnen Williams. I'm interested to see what happens with Mekhi Becton in a few years. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with Sam Darnold. Now, I don't think that this is all just like the GM's fault. I don't believe that it's always a GM's fault. It's always a head coach's fault. I don't believe that. If an organization has been bad for 10 plus years, 20 plus years, if they've just been bad in general, at a certain point, it's the owner. At a certain point, you gotta look at the owner, right? What did they say? What's the old saying? The fish rots from the head down. Well, the head of the fish is the owner of the team. And I guess if you have a rotten owner, you're gonna have a rotten franchise. And I'm not necessarily saying that the owner is rotten, but I am saying there's only so many times that you can replace a GM, you can replace a head coach, before eventually you just gotta look elsewhere. Some people, they say the same thing about the Browns. They say the Browns will never be successful as long as they have their owner. They've replaced so many head coaches. They've replaced so many GMs. They're so quick trigger to get rid of these guys that they're not allowing anyone to have time to make to have success. So I mean, they're giving Adam Gase another year. But given the comments that Jamal Adams did make on him, I am not sure I'd want to give him another year. It sounds like, according to Jamal Adams, the players do not respect him, and that Adam Gase is really not much of a head coach. He's kind of a I'm about me person, look at my bank account kind of guy, which is, I wouldn't want him to be running my team. But, all I gotta say is thank you to the Jets for making this trade. Because as a native Washingtonian, as a Seattle fan, I appreciate it. Please enjoy those draft picks. They're going to be in the later parts of the rounds anyways. And I guess my message to Pete Carroll would be this. Pete, you make a trade for a guy like Jamal Adams, you gotta let him play his game. I know that a lot of people give Pete Carroll a lot of crap, as do I, because one of his most infamous trades is when they acquired Jimmy Graham from the Saints, which a lot of people thought was going to be just this insane, crazy game-altering move, because Jimmy Graham in New Orleans was incredible and was just breaking defenses' backs, what he was doing with Drew Brees, and then he gets to Seattle. In his first year, he got hurt, and you know, that wasn't great, but he wasn't really doing anything spectacular up until that point anyways, and then the next 2 years were just kind of blah. He was just really another tight end. His last year in Seattle, they finally kind of figured out how to use him, and they figured out they should be using him in red zone situations, and I think he had 10 touchdowns that year, which was great, but then he goes off, and he goes to another team. When it comes to Jamal Adams, Pete, you gotta let Jamal play his game. Let Jamal Adams be Jamal Adams. Let him roam, let him do what he's gonna do. That's the best way. If you're gonna get the most out of his game, you gotta do that. I don't think Pete's necessarily gonna do it. But I think the biggest thing people are just gonna be looking out for is, can you re-sign him? Because they traded for Clowney last year, And even though Clowney, he's always had trouble in his career staying healthy, so he did miss some games, everything. Wasn't always completely fully available, but Clowney, when he was on the field, was great. His game against the Niners, he completely destroyed their game plan. I think Clowney at the moment is still a free agent. I think he's still waiting for a lot of money that is just probably not going to come his way. And I guess a lot of people, they look at the Texans and they think the Texans won that trade because the Texans, they got picks and the 2 linebackers, and the linebackers are still there, but Clowney is not with Seattle. He is currently on his couch. So, I don't know. I'm hoping for the best though. I want to see Jamal Adams, with Seattle for the long run, because I think Jamal Adams is a player that also deserves to be in the playoffs, and I just didn't think he was going to get to do that with the Jets. I think Jamal Adams is a guy who should be a superstar, and he should be showing his talents in the playoffs, whether it be with Seattle or just with another good team. He's a great player. I'm excited to watch him, and I'm very curious to see how this Seattle defense plays, because again, that front 7, outside of Wagner and KJ Wright, is meh. It's kind of, I don't know really what I'm going to get from it. But as for that secondary, you look at it on paper, that secondary should be ferocious. Anyways, coming up next, CBS came out with another list, their top quarterback competitions to look out for. I don't agree with the list. I think they put some teams on here I would have never thought of, and they left some teams off this list that I don't quite understand. That up next.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast final segment. Last segment, we talked about Jamal Adams regarding some of the comments he made on Greg Williams and ultimately what I'm hoping happens with him in Seattle. I am hopeful they can re-sign him. I am hopeful that this season goes great and that he is able to add a little bit of a spark to this Seattle defense. But, Greg Williams' comments, I'm still going to say, I don't think Greg Williams is necessarily wrong. Pete Carroll is vanilla. He plays a much more standard kind of defense. Nothing about Pete Carroll screams exotic. Maybe the way that he greeted DK Metcalf, maybe that was a bit exotic, but other than that, Pete Carroll is as vanilla as it gets. But anyways, so CBS, they made another list. Another list. And, I understand some of these. I don't agree with all of them. So CBS made a list, and it was of their top quarterback competitions to watch. And they claim that there are 7 to watch. So number 1, they say it's the Bears. For obvious reasons, right? The Bears, they drafted Mitch Trubisky once upon a time entirely too high. They picked him over Deshaun Watson. They picked him over Patrick Mahomes. And while many people say no one saw Mahomes being this good, if there was one thing we all knew, it was that Deshaun Watson was way better than Mitch Trubisky. Deshaun Watson had proved it longer. He faced Bama twice in championship games, almost beat them twice, did beat them once. Trubisky had 1 year starting. There was no reason for them to draft Trubisky. But that's when it comes down to that thing about the stereotype, the traditional quarterback, what looks better, Who do you really want to be the face of your franchise? That's when it comes into all of those issues. But nonetheless, they picked Trubisky. He has had one good year, and it was his second year. But other than that, from his rookie year and this last year, not great. And even in the year that the Bears went to the playoffs, were 12-4, you could still see that Trubisky he still had the handcuffs on. They were not letting him just do everything by himself. Matt Nagy was controlling a lot of where Trubisky threw, first read kind of stuff. That was all Nagy. He had the handcuffs on Trubisky big time, and he regressed this past season. So they bring in Nick Foles. Nick Foles went to Jacksonville on a big deal, was hurt. They basically gave up on him, and he's now with the Bears. By all accounts, I would believe it should be Nick Foles that wins this battle, though Cordero Patterson came out and said that he has seen a new fire in Trubisky's eyes, that he just looks like a different player. Maybe he was watching Nick Foles out there and thought it was Trubisky. I don't know. But, so, I mean, I agree with that, right? There's definitely a quarterback competition there. With the Raiders, of course, Derek Carr, Mariota, I already gave my whole spiel about that. I think Derek Carr is fine, but I don't think that he's necessarily liked by the organization. I don't think Gruden is a giant fan of him, though some people have claimed Gruden's actually a bigger fan of him than the organization. I just think that after the Raiders start 1-5, 0-6, something like that, they are going to put Mariota in. So I do agree with that. There's definitely a quarterback competition there. One of the ones I don't like that they put on here is with Washington. I don't want there to be a quarterback. Why would there be a quarterback competition there? Dwayne Haskins is, by all accounts, supposed to be the future. He's supposed to be the guy. You draft him in the first round. Last season, he had to deal with really bad coaching, with a really bad coaching situation. Obviously, some people getting fired, then people coming in, and then, he has a new head coach. It's going to be a new offensive scheme. I don't know about that. I don't know why would there be a quarterback competition? Alex Smith, the only thing Alex Smith should be competing for is to get to the backup spot. That should be the only thing Alex Smith is competing for. Anything else, and I think there's a problem with Washington again. Alright, I understand. They have Kyle Allen. Ron Rivera worked with Kyle Allen in Carolina. I'm sure he likes Kyle Allen. Alex Smith is back. And I would probably concede Alex Smith is probably still better than both of them. But Dwayne Haskins, I mean, you gotta give the kid a chance, right? Why would there be any kind of competition? He should at least get some kind of a chance to show what he can truly do with a real head coach in Ron Rivera. And without all the chaos around the team, without Jay Gruden supposedly sleeping with people and getting mad at players and benching players because they're sleeping with the same people and all that. Just give him a chance. Give him a shot. I don't agree with that being on the list. I don't think there should be any quarterback competition in Washington. The next thing they list the Dolphins as a place where there's a quarterback competition. I think kinda. I can kind of agree with that. My problem with Miami is I would get it if they wanted to be careful with Tua, because he is coming off of a terrible injury and there hasn't been the proper training and everything with getting to know your teammates. And obviously they've had two of their top receivers opt out, and Allen Hurns and Albert Wilson. So it's kind of Devontae Parker or bust. And of course, they do have a Gesicki, their tight end, but there's no real weapons. Would you maybe want to redshirt him and just have him watch Fitzpatrick? That might be a good idea, but we all know these teams don't typically do it. Look, I guess at the end of the day, if Tua's healthy and they feel like they can put out a good game plan to go out there, be competitive, and protect him so that he's not getting hurt again, so he doesn't seriously re-injure himself, then okay, I would think you go ahead and put Tua out there. Fitzpatrick is a great backup. He's an average starter. If you get him on a good day, he's as good as anybody, but on his bad days, he is the worst quarterback in the league. So, I guess I understand there is a competition there, but I think it depends on really how they want to go about the season. Do you want do you want to throw Tua into the fire and get him prepared for the NFL, or do you want him to sit back and watch a pro like Ryan Fitzpatrick? I think that's a real question you have to ask. They then go in to talk about the Chargers, and they mainly list it because of Hard Knocks. So, of course, Hard Knocks is doing both of the LA teams, and when it comes to the Chargers, the big thing is that they've gotten rid of Rivers. It is now Taylor's show, but they drafted Justin Herbert to hopefully be the next franchise quarterback. I don't know why they would throw Herbert out there. I do not think there is any kind of competition there. I think Anthony Lynn has made his decision, and I believe it is going to be Taylor. I do not believe Justin Herbert has any chance to take it away. And of course, what they're going to do is they're going to show clips of Herbert on the show, and he's going to throw the ball in slow motion, and his hair is going to be waving back, his arm's going to look good, that ball is going to come out real tight, it's going to get caught by Keenan Allen, and it's going to go for like a touchdown, against, in practice, and people are going to go, this Herbert guy, he looks pretty good. Are we sure that we want to start the season with Taylor? Are we sure? Look, Taylor has been a proven winner in the league. His record, while it's not outstanding, he wins games. And his productivity, I don't think has ever gotten appreciated to the way it should be. In his best seasons, he's been a top 10 quarterback. In 2 of his 3 starting seasons, he was a top 10 quarterback. That's good enough. That is good enough. And this Chargers defense is still loaded. Now, the Chargers have a lot of free agents pending for this coming offseason, including a guy like Keenan Allen, some other pieces on their offensive line. So, they better make the most of this. They really need to make the most of this year, because I don't know how many of these guys are going to be able to re-sign. Melvin Ingram is now not happy with his contract situation with the team. Bosa just got paid, so there's that whole issue. I don't think there's going to be a quarterback competition. I think that they're going to go into the season with Taylor, and they're going to try and win this thing. They go on to mention the Colts. And they kind of talk about how, is anyone really sure that Rivers is better than Jacoby Brissett? Look, if you want a more mobile quarterback, you would go with Brissett, but if you want a guy who can flat out throw the football, and who throws a very accurate ball, and put it this way, who throws one of the more accurate balls in the league, especially when he has protection, I am going to take Phillip Rivers. Jacoby Brissett, from my eyes this past season, he seems like a very conservative player at times. While Rivers, he's a bit too gunslinger. Sometimes he throws it in the triple coverage and he just really shouldn't, and he just kind of goes like, oh, well, I don't know, I thought he could go up and get it. I had to take a shot. You don't like that, but I think the thing with the Colts, and why it is that there should be no quarterback competition here, is because they have the number 1 offensive line in football. The Colts have completely, remember a few years ago with Andrew Luck? When they were known as having, the worst offensive line in football? My God, has the narrative changed. Their offensive line is outstanding. And Rivers is most impactful and is at his best when he's protected. Rivers, when he is protected, is better than Jacoby Brissett has ever been in his career. Jacoby Brissett, I think he's fine. I think he's a great backup. I think he's probably an average to below average starter. I know that they did have to deal with some injuries. They lost T.Y. Hilton, and I think they lost their number 2 receiver at one point. So I know they had to deal with some injuries. But, you still got Mack. You got their running back stable. You had that offensive line. You still had their tight end situation. And their offense at times just couldn't do anything. And I think a lot of it is just because Brissett, he is still a younger player. And I think there is just kind of a ceiling with him. But Rivers, we know what we're going to get from him when he is protected and when he has a running game. And that is what the Colts have. So I don't believe there should be any quarterback competition there. I think Rivers should have it hands down. Now, again, in the middle of the season, it's a whole other thing. But going into the season, I don't think there's any competition. And then the last one they list is the Cowboys. Now, they do say that it is just a joke, and that they just put it in the list because, it maybe helps you get more clicks on the article if you mention the Cowboys. They do say it's going to be all Dak all the time, all the stuff, blah, blah. There's always a little bit of truth in everything. it might have been partially just as a joke to put it on there, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it this way. If anyone thinks that there is any way that the Cowboys would pay $30 million to a quarterback to be their backup on the franchise tag, that they would franchise tag their backup, you're smoking something. Dak is the guy, 100%, because he has to prove it this season, because the Cowboys, they're looking for their franchise dude, and they think it could be Dak, but at the same time, they want him to prove it. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. So, I mean, CBS, haha, good joke, I guess, if it was actually a joke. But in the event anybody out there really does believe that there's a chance the Cowboys open this season with Andy Dalton and not Dak Prescott, that means Dak Prescott got COVID, got injured, or has decided to hold out. There is no other way Andy Dalton will ever start a game for the Cowboys. There just simply isn't. It is ludicrous. But those are the 7 teams that they put down on this list. I guess realistically you could say 6 teams, right? If you want to leave the Cowboys off that list, 6 teams. I think there's 2 teams that they left off of this list, and I'm kind of shocked that they did leave them off this list. So, number 1, the New England Patriots. I've read all the reports, and I've been seeing all these tweets and everything, and seeing people are saying that Cam Newton is looking spectacular, while Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer aren't looking great, especially Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham, from what I've been reading, he has been just throwing interceptions, and he's badly overthrowing guys, and it's just not looking pretty. While Cam Newton is looking just superior. I guess my first question would be, is anyone surprised? I mean, really, is anyone surprised that Cam Newton would be outperforming these two? Cam Newton, not only is he bigger, stronger, faster than both of them, Cam Newton is a former MVP. He took a team to 15-1 in one of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen by a quarterback. And when Cam Newton is healthy, he can sling that ball. You know, people don't necessarily know Cam Newton as the short arm, as the short thrower. They know him as a long ball thrower. He's got a cannon of an arm. His athleticism is part of his game. It's just always going to be a part of his game until, I guess, unless one day he just can't run anymore, it will be forever a part of his game. I'm not surprised that he's outperforming them in practice. The part where I think there could still be competition is just simply Bill Belichick. I'm pretty sure he wants to win their opening game. And guys like Brian Hoyer and Stidham know the system better than Cam Newton. I think there could be a chance that Bill Belichick does kind of have them in a competition this offseason, strictly to see who opens the season, right? Who gives him the best chance to win his season opener. And he could change it from that point on. But I don't think it's solely going to be Stidham. I don't think it's by far going to be a runaway with Cam Newton. I think there's a chance he could open the season with frickin' Brian Hoyer. Just because Hoyer might, in his mind, give him the best chance to win. He's been in the system the longest. This is his 3rd stint, I believe, with the Patriots. I think Bill, he trusts Hoyer. He knows what he can do. He knows the system. While Cam Newton might be the more exciting person to watch, I think if Bill wants to win it, he might go with Hoyer. And the other team that I didn't quite understand why I didn't put him on here, especially if we're going with Washington and the Colts, right? If you're going to put Washington and you're going to put the Colts and you're going to put like the Chargers on this list, why would you not put the Browns? Can we just talk about what's going on with the Browns right now? The Browns have a new head coach, new GM, new system, everything. This is now Baker Mayfield's 4th head coach. Baker Mayfield, his rookie year, he looked great, especially once Greg Williams took over as the interim head coach, and Freddie Kitchens was calling plays. That was when Baker looked his best. It seemed like there was control over the offense, there was a real game plan, and Baker looked like he knew what he was doing, and it looked like the play calling in general, the game plan looked like everyone knew what they were doing. And that's when Baker shined, that's when Baker was a top 10 quarterback by Pro Football Focus, made it on the NFL's top 100 players list, and it looked like the Browns found their guy. This isn't a completely new regime. They have no ties to Baker, and they signed Case Keenum to a 3-year deal. Their head coach Stefanski worked with Case Keenum in Minnesota, and you know what they did? They went 11-3 with him. And they went into the playoffs, and they won a game, and then they had a good opening drive against the Eagles, and then the rest of the game didn't really do anything, but they had a good drive against the Eagles. Basically what I'm saying is Stefanski knows he can win with Case Keenum. There is no ego with Case Keenum. There's none of the talking, none of it. Case Keenum just goes out there and he works. And I think Stefanski likes that, which is why they signed him to a 3-year deal. And I think they signed him in large part to a 3-year deal because they don't trust Baker. Seattle did not sign Geno Smith to a 3-year deal. The Colts did not sign Phillip Rivers to a 3-year deal. Tampa Bay, I don't think they didn't sign Blaine Gabbert to a 3-year deal. None of these teams, they don't usually sign backups to long-term deals. They usually do 1 year at a time. You look at this situation, though, with the Browns, they've signed them to 3 years. I think all that can say is that they aren't sure. If Baker Mayfield was to go out there, and let's just say just during their training camp, right? If Case Keenum is just outperforming him, why would Stefanski care to start Baker? Why would the GM care to start Baker? He's not their guy. They didn't pick him. That was the other general manager that picked him. Why would they care? During the season, if Baker struggles, if opening the season, if they start 0-4, 0-5, 1-4, are you going to tell me that, and he's not exactly playing that well, are you going to tell me they're not going to just go to Case Keenum? This team has so much talent, especially on offense. There's no reason for their offense to not be one of the best in the league. They have 2 of everything. Literally. 2 1,000-yard receivers. 2 running backs that are outstanding. 2 tight ends. Njoku, I think he's on the lesser end of the tight ends. I think Cooper is a much better player than Njoku. Njoku needs to stay healthy, but I do think Njoku has skill sets that can really, really be refined, and he can be a good tight end in this league. And and apparently they did some talking with him. They did tell him what the plan is with him, and he no longer wants to trade. But if we're gonna put the Colts on, and we're gonna put maybe let's just go with a closer situation. If we're gonna say that Washington is gonna have a quarterback battle because Dwayne Haskins, he didn't really look that good. Alex Smith is back. Maybe they want to have a little bit of a competition there. Maybe they don't want to start Haskins. If we're gonna say that, why would we not say the same thing for the Browns? Baker Mayfield was not good last year. And I don't think Case Keenum has ever looked that bad. Maybe you could say during his time with the Rams, but we all have kind of accepted that anybody who played under Jeff Fisher was handicapped to the umpteenth degree. If Baker Mayfield doesn't look good, I firmly believe that they will go to Case Keenum. And I would hate it because I love Baker, and I want to see Baker succeed in this league. I loved him in Oklahoma. I love him now. I loved him his rookie year. This last season, though, was very hard for me to watch because I bought into the Browns hype. I'm not necessarily into the Browns hype this year. I just believe that they can at least be a playoff team. Will they win a game? Probably not. But I do know that it's easier to go to the backup when your quarterback was a number 1 overall draft pick. It is easier to go to the backup when the starter is not your guy. They have no attachment to Baker. And if it doesn't look good this season, they could even look to trade him. I think it would be a mistake. I think Baker can be really, really good in this league. I really do. I think he just needs some stability around him. It's the same thing with a guy like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has no stability around him, but he's had at least more stability than Cleveland. Cleveland has had so many head coaches already in Baker's tenure. Darnold, he's just on his second. The problem is just that, Baker has more talent around him than Darnold has, but it's just, that's what happens when you go number 1 and number 2 and number 3 overall to these bad teams, especially as a quarterback. There's a reason the team is bad. And when you're the quarterback, oh my God, do their issues fall all over you. Very rarely is the team able to draft a guy, and is that guy able to just lift the team above and beyond, to heights that it hasn't seen in a while. Colts. Andrew Luck. When I think about it, he's probably the last guy to do it. But yeah, so I would go ahead. If I really wanted to change CBS's list, I would probably take the Chargers off. I'd take the Colts off. Even the Cowboys is a joke. I'd take them off. I would take Washington off. I'm okay with the Bears, Raiders, and Dolphins. But I would add New England to that list. And I would probably add the Browns. I guess I would add if I was going to add the Browns, I would keep, Washington on, just because I think I want to keep the same kind of logic there. But, yeah, so I don't know. Whoever does CBS's list, those, I think they need to hire me. What they need to do is they need to hire me to come and do these lists for them. Because some of them, I just don't think they make any sense. But, whatever. Alright, we have under a month until the NFL season begins. Chiefs, Houston, apparently the Chiefs plan to have, I think they said 20,000 fans, 22% capacity, I believe, is what they want to have there, which is an interesting number, but they want to have 22% capacity. I guess we'll see how that all looks. Hopefully that can happen. Hopefully these COVID outbreaks do not get even worse. Because I really am looking forward to seeing that game. Whew, man, it's gonna be good. But anyways, thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.